From Capitol Hill is Congressman Jim McDermott, Democrat from Washington State and a member of the House Ways and Means Committee. Good to have you on the program, Congressman. Thanks very much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Maria.
So, Mitch McConnell says that you won't vote for this deal. It's been reported that you won't vote for this deal. Is that true?
That's true. I'm going to vote no. At least I intend to vote no at this point. I voted twice. I voted for lifting the debt limit clean, and I voted for the one that was put forward by Harry Reid. This one has attached to it legislation which I think is very bad public policy.
So tell me what's wrong with this deal and what it would take to get your vote changed.
Well, first of all, when we're in a depression, you have to put money into the economy. Cutting jobs, cutting out government programs saves money for the government, but it does not produce jobs. There's no evidence of that. We had George Bush in for 8 years. He cut taxes all over the place, and we had not near the job production that we did under Bill Clinton, who increased taxes. And so there's no evidence. This is ideology. They're giving a belief system that they're putting into this resolution that if we somehow spend all our effort on reducing the deficit, suddenly, magically, jobs will appear. There is no evidence for that.
So where do you want to see the spending then? Where don't you think we should be cutting because that's going to impact the economy at such a fragile moment?
Well, first of all, I don't think you should be cutting away any ability of the president and the Congress to do infrastructure projects. That's what was done in the 30s under Roosevelt. That's what brought us out of the problems to 1936. Then in 1936, they decided, let's have a little austerity. They put us back in the tank, and we were in the tank for 3 years until the Second World War, and then with massive government funding, we came up out of the Depression, and I think that's what you're going to see here. We are going to be, for the next 3 or 4 years, in serious problems.
In what regard? Because you think that the cutting back at this fragile moment in time is going to hurt the economy even further?
Yes, because if you lay off teachers and you lay off fire workers and you lay off policemen and you lay off these people who are making pretty good livings, then suddenly they have nothing to pay with their unemployment but just their mortgage. They're not buying fishing tackle. They're not buying outboard motors. They're not buying anything but the necessities of life. And the economy is not going to pick up as long as we have 9.2% unemployment. We have to do something. And you haven't heard a single word about jobs in this whole project. There is not a single program in there that says it will create jobs. Now, an infrastructure trust would put construction workers back to work, building America as it should be done. We could do that, but there's no money for that in the way this thing is constructed.
Well, what about the stimulus money that we saw a year and a half ago? I mean, that was all about infrastructure and money was going to the states, and yet it didn't really, I mean, did it create any jobs?
It created jobs in some places, but it was not enough. It was cut short because, remember, the fundamental principle here is that Mitch McConnell said, my #1 goal is to prevent Barack Obama from being reelected. He can't allow Obama to bring the economy back out of this. Mitch McConnell is perfectly satisfied with 9.2% unemployment. As the minority leader of the Senate, that is perfectly all right with him. It's not with me. There is no talk about unemployment insurance. There's no talk about foreclosures. Foreclosures in this country continue to go up. And there is no talk in this bill that's put through here about how we're going to deal with the problems that face real Americans, which is a job and a foreclosure.
Everything you're saying is definitely resonating with most people out there. But don't you wonder if, in fact, all of this uncertainty, this stalemate, is actually doing exactly what you say spending cuts will do, and that is keeping people frozen. They're not doing anything. We're not seeing any economic activity moving forward. And that's creating the same circumstance that you're saying could be the case with spending cuts.
Well, the idea that you can fix our problems simply by cutting government programs, because that's the ideology that the Republicans, that's what that bill is all about, is cutting government programs. Now that idea, there's no evidence that that's going to lead to recovery in this country, and in fact, we ought to be pushing out more infrastructure in the transportation bill or in an infrastructure trust bank. There should be plenty of money out there to be building things and putting construction workers to work. If we start that, we will start the economy back in the other direction.
Let me ask you about the tax side of the story. There are no tax increases as a result of this deal. The president and many Democrats wanted that. Is that part of the reason you won't vote on it, vote yes for this, and you're going to say no?
That's the second part of it, yes. I could get you $300 billion almost instantly. Let's take the oil profits back. The oil companies are swimming in money. We do not need to be subsidizing them. We could take back the offshore money that's going up. There's about $1.5 trillion sitting offshore in sheltered money. If we stop that, we could do something.
But isn't this the same? Isn't this the same thing that you're saying spending cuts would do? If you tax the highest earners and you tax corporations who are, apparently the job creators, isn't that going to do the same result that you're saying spending cuts will create? And that is an inactivity?
It really makes me laugh to hear you use the Republicans' talking points, because the oil companies are not going to stop drilling for oil and selling gasoline because we tax their excess profits.
Well, I'm not just talking about the oil companies, though. It's not just the oil companies. I'm talking about the highest earners. I'm talking about corporations in general. You're talking about having those companies bring money back from overseas. They don't want to do it because they say they get double taxed. So why would higher taxes get them to spend their money here?
They're not spending the money they have in this country. The biggest companies in this country are sitting on $1.5 trillion.
So you think they're going to spend that money if they see higher taxes then?
They're not going to do it until they see that the government is doing its part to make this economy work. They are not, as long as they see this wrangling here in the Congress over destroying the government. This is not a country where people are going to accept bad air and bad water and no teachers and no education system. And that's what the cutters are up to.
Real quick, the final question here. Do you think that we are going to see a debt downgrade regardless? I mean, look, here we are on August 1st. The deadline's tomorrow, and you say you're not going to vote for it. I mean, what's plan B? Are you expecting that the U.S. credit gets downgraded then?
Well, first of all, John Boehner will squeeze the votes out of the people just like he did the other night. But the second thing is, for anybody to put their confidence in Moody's and Standard & Poor, is they must be smoking something, because these are the guys that said it was triple-rated mortgage derivatives that got us into this problem in the first place. They are not to be trusted. They are owned by the people who pay their bills.
Right. Well, you could debate their credibility all you want, but at the end of the day, if they downgrade, the market has a real disruption. No? I mean, are we talking the same language here? I mean, you could debate their credibility, but what if we get the downgrade?
I lived in the state of Washington when they downgraded us, and it's a bad thing, and that's why I voted on the 31st of May to have a clean raising of the debt limit. I also voted on the Reid proposal. I believe you have to raise it, but I'm not going to raise it and also swallow this terrible bill that's with it. Let them get the vote somewhere else.
Bottom line. Congressman, thank you. Jim McDermott, we appreciate your time today, and we'll talk with you soon. We'll be right back on Closing.